I will show you how to reprogram your mind to solve any hard Sudoku using 4 simple steps. And with that, it's solving time. Step 1, you want to look for digit restrictions from 1 to 9. Notice here how these 2's in columns 3 and 2 and this 2 in row 2 restrict the 2's to only one spot in block 1. You can solve that for a 2. Greetings, friend. I found this classic Sudoku on Logic Masters India. This is one of the premier puzzle sites in the world, and the author of this highly rated puzzle is Serhiy Toshenko. He's one of the best puzzle creators on the planet. Thank you so much, Serhiy, for this amazing Sudoku. It's perfect to show you how to reprogram your mind to solve Sudoku faster. And before I show you where to look next and apply these steps, I want to hear from you. How easy is it for you to learn new Sudoku techniques? Please share this in the comments and help me grow the internet's best Sudoku community. Now let's focus back on the ones, with this one cutting across row 3 and this one coming up column 1. There's only 2 places for a 1 in block 1. So you want to find these kind of restrictions where a candidate is restricted to a 3x3 block in only 2 places along with any solves. That's part of this whole step 1. Look here in block 9. This one and this one. 2 places for a 1 right there. Okay, move on with the 2's. Now that you solve this 2, there's only 2 2's in block 2. And no other restrictions or places you can put a 2 right now. Move on to the 3's. And you might see is these 2 3's. Only 2 places for a 3 in block 1. And this 3 cuts across row 5 and restricts the 3's to these 2 places in block 5. And so they're a pointing pair. They're in the same column. Since the 3 has to be in one of these spots, you can't have a 3 anywhere else in that column. And so with this 3 and this 3, 2 places for 3 now in block 2. But we're not quite done here, so let's move on. Check out the 4's. We'll come back to the 3's. Nothing you can do with the 4's right now. Move on to the 5's. And you'll see with this 5 cutting across, this 5 coming up column 2, restricts the 5's to 2 places in block 1, row 2. So it's another pointing pair to go with this 5 and this 5. 2 places for a 5 in block 3. And then this 5 coming down restricts the 5's of these 2 places in block 5. And so that makes it another pointing pair. And then with this 5 and these 5's, 2 places for a 5 in block 8. Move on to the 6's. These 2 6's, 2 places for a 6 in row or block 2. Nothing else with the 6's. Go on to the 7's. We got a lot going on with the 7's. These 2 7's and this 7. Solve for 7 right there. And with those 7's, now you'll notice that the 7's are in these 2 spots in block 2. It's the same 2 spots that the 2's are in. You notice we made those marks in both of those cells. But you also have this additional 3 here. So what do? Well, what the marks are telling you is that the 2 and 7 can only go in these 2 cells in block 2. And so since they're the only 2 candidates that can go there, well, since they can only go in those 2 spots, no other candidate can go there. You can't put the 3 there or you'd run out of spots to put the 2 and the 7. So you can displace that 3 and solve this cell now for a 3. That's why you want to do these types of marks. And now you put the 3 here, you want to see the impact on the row, the column, and the block. With these 2 3's now, you can displace that 3, solve this cell for a 3. And we're still not done here with the 7's, because you'll notice with this 7 cutting across, the 7's are limited to these 2 spots now in block 5, which makes them another hidden pair. And you might see here with this 5 and 8, the 8's are actually restricted here. It gives you a 5, 8 hidden pair as well. So you have all these digits marked in block 5 except for right there. The only thing remains a 2, so this has to be a 2. Okay. Now we're done with the 7s, move on to the 8s. These 8s, as a hidden pair, also act as a pointing pair, since they're in the same row. To go with this 8 and this 8, 2 places for an 8 in block 4. And then with this 8, actually with this 8 and this 8, you got 2 places for 8 here in block 2, which is going to make them a pointing pair. To go with this 8, you can solve for an 8 now in block 3. And with these two 8s, 8s in block 9. And that's all you can do with the 8s right now. Move on to the 9s. You'll notice 2 places for a 9 in block 3. And in block 7 with this 9 and this 9, 2 places right there. So you just finished step 1. Now step 2 is you want to go back through if you had any solves. This time focus more on pairs, by value cells. This is going to lead you to the more advanced strategies you'll find in the hard puzzles. You do want to capture all the easy solves first before you start looking for anything much more complicated. And so what you might see is, since you put this 2 here and you have the 2 here, the 2s are going to be in these 2 spots in block 8. So that's a 2-5 hidden pair. And Serhi is telegraphing something here. You got this 2-7 hidden pair right here. You got this 2-5 hidden pair right there. There's something going on. It puts a lot of pressure on row 3 and row 7, and I'll come back to that. Let's see what other easy solves you can get. You might notice now with these 2s and this 2, 2 places for a 2 in block 9, and then with these 2s and this 2, 2 places for a 2 in block 6. Okay, look at the 7s with this 7 cutting across. This 7s act as a pointing pair. Only 2 places for a 7 in block 8. To go with this 7 and this 7, you can solve for a 7 now in block 7. And then with this 7 and this 7, you have 7s restricted in block 4 of these 2 cells. You see how you just keep pushing, and look at the impact. Row, column, and block. Because now you solve this 7 here, where can a 3 go in this block? Well, with this 3 cutting across and these 2 3s coming down, you only have one place to put 3 in block 7, and that makes it a 3 in the corner. Bum, bum, bum. Nice little trick that SudokuPad does whenever you put a 3 in the corner. And then with these 3s and this 3, you can solve for 3 in block 9. And with these 3s and this 3, 2 places for a 3 in block 6. So look at that impact, make those marks, keep finding the restrictions. And then now with this 8 and this 8, since you marked the 3 there, you have a pointing pair of 8s in block 7. To go with this 8 now, you can displace that 8, right? Because the pointing pair is here. 8's got to be in one of these cells, can't be there anymore. You can solve this cell now for an 8. And that's going to be about it. You're going to look around and you're going to get a little stuck. And so now it's time for step 3. And this is the key step for hard puzzles. Step 3, you want to look for advanced strategies. And you have 2 options. First option is you look at all the single candidate strategies. These are things like X-wings, 2-string kites, skyscrapers. You want to do that if you don't see a lot of by-value cells. The second option, and I'm kind of hinting at it, is look for those by-value cells, or BVCs as I call them. If there's some set up here, you might want to look for that, and because there's a different type of advanced strategy. There are some more by-value cells, BVCs, to find in this puzzle. In fact, I told you about the impact and the pressure on row 3. So what's left in row 3? Can't be a 1, can't be a 2 or 7, 3, 5, 8, or 9. These have to be a 4 or 6 naked pair, right? 2 and 7 go right there. Okay, what about row 7? You might notice that you have a 1, you got the 2, 5, 3, 7, 8, 9. This also can only be a 4, 6. This is huge. You have to find this. And there's a couple of implications of this. One is not an advanced strategy, but it's going to help you with this puzzle. The other is an advanced strategy. You're looking at it right now. I just showed you one. Okay, first, since this 4, 6 is in the same column, that makes it a naked pair. 4 and 6 have to be in one of these cells. So now you have at least 5 cells accounted for in column 3. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. That leaves you with a 1, 5, 8, and 9. Well, if you have a 1, 8, and 9 right there, that means this cell now has to be a 5, right? That's the only digit that can go there. And then with this 5, you can see you can displace this 5 and solve this cell now for a 5. Awesome. So that's the impact, that's the pressure it's putting on this column. And if you wanted to continue solving, you can put a 1, 8, 9 there. So this would be an 8, 9. This would be a 1, 8, 9. And you got the 8, 9 there. So this is actually going to be a 1, which gives you a nice 8, 9. And you can solve, well, you can actually put a 4, 6 right there, okay, to finish up block 1. But we're not done. You want to notice that these 4 cells all contain the same BVCs, 4 and 6, and there's an even amount of them. That's important. There's 4 of those connected. You might notice wherever this value is, a 4 or 6, this has to be the opposite, right? If that's a 4, that's a 6. That's a 6, that's a 4. This makes them a conjugate pair. These are the backbone of advanced strategies. So if one of these, whatever this is the opposite value, which means this would be the same value as this cell right here, right? If this is a 4, that's a 6, forces a 4 right here. They're also a conjugate pair, which means this would be the opposite value of the blue and the same as this other orange. This is huge because you got to look at the logical implication of the beginning and end of this chain. Since if this is a 4, that would have to be a 6, and you can figure it out, mark it yourself. If this is a 6, that has to be a 4. We don't know which ones they are, but we do know that these are opposites. One's a 4, one's a 6, so any cell that sees both, you can eliminate both of them, the 4 and the 6. So using some simple coloring here, we're doing what's called a remote pair. This is great. So where can you do eliminations? Right here. This could be a 4, 6, or 9, and then right here. That's what sees both of these. It shares the block with this cell, shares the column with that cell. That's what you mean by C's. This can only be a 1, 4, or 6. So since you have this remote pair, you can remove that 4, 6 and solve this cell for a 9. This is awesome logic that's already put here. I thought this was a beautiful puzzle. When I found this, I had to share this with you. So now that has to be a 9, and then what has to be here? Remove that 4 and 6. Can't be there. This has to be a 1 now. Great. Beautiful. Okay, so now you want to look at the impact here. So we found an advanced strategy. See how far you can go with it. If you get stuck, you want to look for another advanced strategy. Okay, so one thing you can notice right away, go across row 2 here. You'll notice that there's a 6 can be in this cell, but it can't be here. We need a 4 and 6 to finish the row. So you can solve that for a 6 right away. Solve this for a 4. Okay, just using that marking to help you out. And then what else can you do? You can notice that this can't be a 1 anymore. With this 6 cutting across, this has to be your 6, which would put a 2, 4 here. But can we do better than that? And yes, we can. Because what can you have now in column 7? You can only have a 1, 2, or a 4. And since you have the 1 and 2 right there, this has to be your 4, which puts the 4 here in block 9, displacing that 2. And then you'll notice that this has to be the 1 to finish column 7. And that 1 displaces the 2, displaces that 3. And this brings me up to my 4th simple step. Once you've found advanced strategy, you want to hunt down the marks. All these marks you made, try to clean them up, clean up that clutter. They're leading you to the greatest restriction in the puzzle. Clean them up. You'll get the fastest solves. This is probably my favorite part of the whole puzzle. I feel like all the work put into it is now starting to pay off. So how do we do this? With this 3, you notice you got a 7 and 3 right there. So you want to attack that. And then with this 7, displace that 7. Solve that for 7. Displace this 8. Now you can disambiguate the 8, 9 in the column and solve that cell now for an 8. Awesome. And now it leaves you just a 4, 6 here. So we can put the 4, 6 there. I think we're going to be able to do better than that. Because you see a full house right here. Guaranteed solve. Got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. This has to be a 6, which puts a 4 right there. Okay? And now you can see what's remaining in these two cells. Can be a 1 or a 9. Well, with these ones, here's your 1, here's your 9. You can remove this additional mark there. We don't need that. Now you have a nice full house right here. That means this has to be a 5, which you can displace that 5, solve this cell for a 5. And just kind of keep working your way down. Full houses are great. You can do 2 at a time. That also works really well. So you'll notice that what you're missing in block 6 is a 6 and 9. With this 9, that has to be your 9. That's got to be your 6. All right. And then you look across here, and you might see that you're just missing a 1. So you can mark that 1 with these two 1s. Solve this for 1, displacing that 8. Which means you can disambiguate the 5 and the 8 right here. And just keep working those marks. That means that's a 2 and that's a 5. This has to be a 7 and that's a 2. This has to be a 9 to finish block 2. Okay? And then this 6 is going to unravel all these 4s and 6s. So that has to be a 4, that has to be a 6. Here's your 4, here's your 6. Here's your 4, that has to be a 6. And now you see one of these has to be a 7. Well, this 7 will displace that 7. Solve for 7. You removed all the marks, and now you just got to finish up with a 4 and a 9. I'm going to find the first cell, first digit, pull it on down. That's got to be your 4, and our last cell is a 9. Now, see if you can spot the remote pairs in this next video. Thank you so much for watching.